Today we have part 3 of our look back at some of the best ever Wolverine comics. Okay, so today we've got some interesting books for you. Yep. I think the 3 that we're talking about today, I think, are among the most recognized Wolverine comics. Like these are people's go-to books. So, without further ado, we've got Wolverine Origin to kick us off. And sort of a controversial book. It's a love it or hate it kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You did a big issue with Dav a couple of months ago.
Yep.
You talked about origin stories and you brought that up, and it's the necessity of them. And, you know, a character like Wolverine who is inherently mysterious, is it a good thing to have his origin explored in such fine detail? Yeah. Or is it better left alone? Here to answer some of those questions and more, Dale Brody.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel Morgan. No, it was good. It was good. You did really well then, man. So what did I think of Origin? As far as it looks, Kubert's done a very good job. Looks very nice. As far as it's written really well.
Okay.
But that doesn't stop the fact that I just don't want this story. I'm reading it with a sense of, this is actually really good, but for the wrong character, if you get what I mean. Like, there's something about going into the backstory of Wolverine and seeing that as a child he was a weakling and he was sick all the time, and then, you know, he was abused. No, he wasn't abused, but, like, you know, he had traumas in his life, and that caused his mutation to kick off, and then he went over to this thing where he was useless and had to build up his strength, and, you know, he fell in love with this woman. I'm just sitting there going, why are we just pussifying Wolverine?
Nice word. Thank
you. You know, the further pussification, so you can use it in multiple ways, doing that to this character, it just seems redundant. Wolverine is the beer-drinking, pissed-off Canadian with the razor-sharp claws.
And a mysterious past.
And a mysterious past who will just mess you up. You read this, and you're just like, well, now I sympathise with him. And I don't really like that I sympathise with him in that way. The bone claws. I just don't need bone claws.
No, I don't.
I was quite happy with the Weapon X explanation, which was, there's build-up of adamantium in his wrists. Is it a bit more far-fetched? Yeah. But do I care? No. I'm more than happy to have that. So, for me, it was a well-written, well-drawn book, but a book that I never needed to happen and never wanted to read. So, that's kind of my overall thing of it.
I agree with you for the most part.
Okay.
The bits I don't agree with you on is that it was well-drawn and well-written.
Okay.
However, this book is coloured. I don't like it.
I don't like it.
I think it says in the comic, I don't have it with me, but it says in the comic, like, digital ink, digital colouring. It's just something that doesn't say colouring. Do you know what I mean? And I know that isn't inherently bad, because I know a lot of artists, you know, use that method. But there's something about this that just felt, I didn't want to look at it. There wasn't enough detail for me. Some of the actual positioning of the panels and the images themselves are interesting visually, but I really didn't like the way it looked. And whilst the writing wasn't horrible, it did nothing to really capture my imagination. And you're right, like, oh, he's Wolverine because there was Wolverines around, and you know, he's this way because of this, and Japan because
Logan.
And
the book. Oh, no. The worst one for me by far was how he got the nickname Wolverine. That boy can sure dig up a root. He digs it up like a Wolverine. Yeah, that's what he is. Wolverine. Those are the voices I had in my head at the time. I was just like, what? That was almost worse than the X-Men Origins.
No, the worst one was like, oh, I've got this book about Japan. Oh. Exposition. I'll keep that. And then it's just like, there's the book in the last shot, and now he's going to Japan because of the book. And it's just like, I don't need any of that. None of it.
Yeah.
Like the great interesting thing about Wolverine, I think, one of the interesting things is that he doesn't like. In fact, that was the start of the character, is that he doesn't know how he got to be the way he was. Like, because the only reason he joins the X-Men is because he makes a deal with Professor X that using his telepathy
to figure out who he is.
So it's such an integral part of his character that's just lost. I really didn't like this at all. It was a real effort to read.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do agree. Okay, so the next book we're going to talk about was the very first solo outing for Wolverine. I showed it off last week on the Q&A. I have the issue one. It's my shiny baby. And that is just Wolverine, written by Chris Claremont and drawn by Frank Miller. Mm-hmm. You've also got the Ultimate Graphic Novel version there.
I have.
And
yeah,
that was really scouse.
Wasn't it?
I have. And yeah, this story just follows our first look at Wolverine in Japan, I want to say.
It could quite possibly be.
Very well be. And this is kind of where the new films seems to be getting most of its inspiration from, with Yoshida Corporation, the Old Man, and the ninjas with the hand and things like that. So, what did you think of Wolverine's first solo outing?
I didn't mind it. It was quite hard to read at times, as often books that are written at that sort of time are. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
As we discovered with the Kitty Pryde one, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best thing about this book is the artwork. Frank Miller is so good at doing the comics.
That's one I wanted to point out. Just because of like the kinetic energy of the panel and the way the kind of slash goes straight through. It seems really quite almost modern.
Yeah, but the whole book is like that. It is very colourful and of its time, but also the way the layouts and the use of negative space is just very, very impressive. And the splash pages, they're just lovely. It's just a really great book to look at. Frank Miller's such a good artist.
He really does know how to use negative space. Yeah, like not everything needs.
He's so creative, and
that I loved.
Yeah, and you could tell that a lot of thought has gone into this, and you could tell there's someone at the top of the game. So I really loved the way this book looked. In terms of the story, I liked the story as a premise. So in that sense, I could sort of enjoy it in an overall level, but it was very expositional. And for it only being 4 issues, it felt very long to me. So it's sort of definitely worth reading. I mean, I got this, I don't know if they have them everywhere, but at least in the UK, they're bringing out these every 2 weeks or whatever.
Something like that.
And like a new classic run, and they're good because they're inexpensive. This is only £10 and it's a good quality print. So, if you're looking for something new, if you like Wolverine, this is a good addition to your collection.
Indeed, yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. No, I disagree with you in a certain part, and that is that it was too expositional. For me, this felt all right, actually. This felt less expositional than Kitty Pryde.
It was less than that, but...
I definitely preferred it to that. And, yeah, no, I just had such a blast with this book.
Yeah.
Chris Claremont is just a great writer. He's not afraid to show Wolverine as a killer.
No.
In this book, they may not draw it in such detail because it was the 80s in the comic book code, but they're more than happy to say... It's
very creative the way they get around it, though.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing that I pointed out to you is very early on, he gets into a bar fight, and the only thing you see is Wolverine getting hit over the head with a beer mug, and then it just says... the bear lasted longer, but I let the man live. But that's just written in white space, and then we move on to the next scene. You don't need to see what happens. You know what happens. And there's something about that use of imagination that, again, you know exactly what Wolverine just did to that guy. You don't need to read it. You just need to know.
Just a few words as well. The whole book is like, it's very simple.
Yeah.
It's completely opposite in many ways to Weapon X, which is crazy goings on and happening. Every bit of space is always filled.
Yeah.
It's completely opposite to that. It's very minimal. It's very, use this wisely.
Cool. So just before we get on to the last book, I just wanted to mention, thank you for all your suggestions for books to read. I did start reading The Best There Is, We were going to review it on the show, but Dan didn't get a chance to read it, and quite frankly, I got up to issue 6, and it was not very good. That's just what I thought of it, and I mean,
I didn't get a chance.
Yeah, you didn't get a chance, so we haven't read that. Instead, what we did read was, if this is the start of Wolverine, and Origins is the start of Wolverine, then Old Man Logan is the last Wolverine story. This is set in a dystopian future where the villains got their act together, they teamed up, and they took out every hero that they could, leaving a few strays here and there, Wolverine being one of them. Due to what happened that night, which you don't find out until later on in the books what happened, he has disowned the name of Wolverine. He is simply Logan. He lives a farmer's lifestyle until he's brought an offer by Hawkeye to earn a bit of extra money to save his house and keep the Banner Boys off his back and his family's back. So they go on this big adventure across country to do what they need to do. Dan, what do you think of Old Man Logan?
I mean, come on. Like, Old Man Logan is one of the best comic books ever written. It's certainly one of the best superhero comic books ever written. The grasp that Mark Millar manages to get on the character of Wolverine is just pinpoint. It is just... It makes it a pleasure to read because it feels like a character, and it helps as well that it's set in the future. So you have all this history. Wolverine has all this baggage, and you sort of know however much you know going in, and it hits Wolverine just so squarely on the, like, it's just so perfect that it just flies. It feels like such a real world. This place, and the creative way that they build this world, and of all the different places, and there's a whole Ant-Man thing which is just amazing. And just all these little details of how the superheroes fell and who's left and what happened to them, and the cameos and the way they exist, and the whole Willy won't he kill kind of thing. And the adventure of it, it's very much a story of an adventure and a road trip kind of. And, it flies. It is such a pleasure to read and to look at. And there is one moment, which I know you're going to mention as well, a very specific moment in this book where you find out why he decided not to kill, and it's just magnificent. It's just one of the most, oh my god, one of the moments in comics. So yeah, in conclusion, if you have not read Old Man Logan, read Old Man Logan. It's incredible. You will not regret it. It's a bit pricey. Pay the price.
Yeah, I mean that particular moment that you talked about or alluded to, I am not man enough to admit that I teared up at that scene. Like that, it hits you so hard, hits you like a brick wall. And the whole book is just, it's fantastic. There's a reason why we saved this book to last. This is one of the only books that we've talked about this in the whole Wolverine run that I knew exactly what you thought of, and you know exactly what I thought of, because when we first read it, it was just, I think I read it first, didn't I? And then I was like,
read this
now, go and read it now. And you called me up very shortly afterwards going, wow. It's absolutely fantastic book. As you said, the cameos, the characters, the Ant-Man thing's really cool. Pinfalls. I forgot what it was called and I remember halfway through. Getting to see certain faces, certain villains that you get to see in this that obviously Wolverine doesn't normally have interactions with is just so cool. Like Red Skull and Doctor Doom has a moment in this book, which I love, because Doctor Doom does nothing in this book. You just see him in one panel. It's got this element of dramatic foreboding that's fantastic. Like Miller just puts things in this book that make you go, I wonder what they're up to in all this. I wonder what their story is. Do you ever find out? No. But do you ever need to? No. That's the beauty of this book. Asking myself questions again. And the last issue of this, where we get to see the Shink, it's special. Goosebumps all the way through reading this. Honestly, I cannot recommend enough going out and buying this. And buying it, you know, don't digitally download it. This is the artwork. I forget who the artist is, but
I think, is it McNiven, Steve McNiven?
Might be.
Sometimes I just make up artist names and hope.
Hope that that's one of them. But the artwork in this book is so beautiful that it's really one to own, you know, and it's such a special book. You really should own it. It's Just Under the Killing Joke for me is one of my favourite graphic novels of all time. So that concludes our Wolverine reading list. We hope you've enjoyed, and join us next Wednesday when we've got the Wolverine review.
Look what a coincidence!
I didn't even know that was coming out. We just did this for the...
It's not true, he's lying.
I am, soz. So yeah, let us know what you thought of this list down in the comments below, also on Twitter @ComicBookShow1. And also, recommend other reading lists for us to do. Because we might not just do this themed around films. If there's a character you want us to talk about, I think we're more than happy to do it because we've enjoyed doing these so much. Yeah. And what's coming up on Friday, Dan?
On Friday, we are talking some Comic-Con news.
Yes, we are.
Big budget movie announcements and comics and all sorts of good stuff.
So we'll see you on Friday.
We'll see you then. It was really just set up for you to finish it off.
It didn't feel that set up.